the official MoonWilly.com podcast, your source for news and updates from the hottest token in DeFi. Here's your host, the voice of DeFi, Steven.
Biometrically managed self-sovereign identity on the blockchain. Yeah, that's exactly what it says at the top of the webpage of PhotoChromic, which we had an AMA with Legg today, the founder of PhotoChromic, which is exactly that, a biometrically managed self-sovereign identity on the blockchain. There's so many different things you could talk about with that in today's age of COVID and vaccine passports, but it goes so much beyond that. So check out this AMA, which is a really interesting and thought-provoking one in that you can think of all the different utilities that an NFT could have. So enjoy. I am Steven, the voice of DeFi. And I talk to you guys with Kevin here every day, Monday through Friday at 1800 UTC, where we talk about all kinds of things, whatever's going on in the crypto world, whatever's going on in the MoonWilly world, sometimes just whatever's going on in the world, period. We'll talk about, and we have fun. We laugh, we cry, we tell jokes. It's always a lot of fun time. So come and join us if you can. But whenever we're not doing that, we actually have some fantastic AMAs from some fantastic projects that you need to learn about. And today is no different. We definitely have a good one today. We have an AMA with Legg, the founder of PhotoChromic. And it is a very interesting project in that it is a biometrically managed self-sovereign identity on the blockchain. And in these times that we have here lately, we can see more and more of a potential need for this. But Murray, I can see you are in here. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, how are you doing? And hi to everybody else that's listening. And thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you for all of your visual and voice effect in the background there. And it's an honor to spend some time and chat to your audience about our project.
Awesome. Well, we will learn quite a bit about it. And my guess is, even though I have some kind of listed questions I want to get to with the topic at hand, I bet you a lot of other conversation comes from your different answers, because there's just a lot to know about identification these days. So let's start out with you, Murray. Is how did you get started in blockchain? We'll get to PhotoChromic here in just a moment. But first, I really want to know more about you. What's your origin story?
Cool. So for me, I've long been a supporter of technology. So when I was 15 years old, that was the first time that I bought that was when I bought my first share. And I always was that nerd that used to pick up the paper and switch to the business section and have a look what was happening in the world. And technology has always just fascinated me. So anything that's been new, on the fringe, at the bleeding edge, involving the development of community, of social network, of access to an improved quality of life has always fascinated me. So I kind of discovered Bitcoin around 2012. Bought my first purchase then, and kind of use that as a way to observe. I think I'm always a believer in having a little bit of skin in the game into something, and that really was that. So watching with a huge amount of interest as the space unfolded. I think 2017 was obviously a really good thing for kind of the awakening and getting a little bit more mass adoption. But, really beyond the store of value, I was always interested in, what a smart contract could do for people. And that was always something that had interested me. I started a influencer marketing platform that has influencers around the world. And that almost is like you guys, that's the other side of the same coin of crypto is, the community that is led by and educated by influencers. So when it comes to credibility and authenticity and the trust of conversation and transaction, that really roots itself in identity. So I've always been interested in it. I've always wanted to do a project in it. I've always been interested in how that could work with smart contracts. And I think the trigger point for me was when NFTs kind of arrived and the utility behind them I could appreciate. And I said, okay, the time's now, and let's start working on something that that can have some utility and some value to everyone.
Man, I love that origin story. And you really did good in progressing about how you started out just saying you love technology. You're a technophile, if you will. And then it went on to discovering Bitcoin all the way to, like you said, the trigger was whenever the NFTs arrived and you realized that they could actually have some utility. They're not just art. You can have some good utility with them. And it sounds like you were well aware of that maybe before the rest of the world is, which makes you kind of uniquely positioned as a technology lover to do, to be able to take it to the next step. Well, I can gather what PhotoChromic is all about just by going to the website, but we have many people here that may not even be familiar with your product. So I want to hear it from you. And while everyone else is listening, what is PhotoChromic and what are you trying to accomplish with it?
I think, like a lot of us feel, oil and water are identity and the blockchain. Those are not really things that we've felt comfortable with because of the nature of blockchain being the open ledger. So exposing your information publicly really sets you up for probably the wrong experience in crypto. So what PhotoChromic is an attempt to help put the power of people's identity back in their own hands. I mean, we've just seen it time and time again where a centralized service, a big technology company, you trust them with your information, your username, your password, and a lot of personal information and documents, only for them to leak them out to the public. We've seen from our own governments get it wrong sometimes in terms of the way that they manage and store our information. And sometimes, that becomes corrupted. But, traditionally government identification is very specific to your country, and information about your accounts on social media tend to, not travel well between one centralized service and another. So this idea of self-sovereign identity is the ability for every individual to manage their own identity on the blockchain, manage how they expose that information to other people and people that they trust, and also choose to not expose it to the majority of people. And that's really the name behind PhotoChromic. I mean, PhotoChromic is the effect that sunlight has on particular sunglasses, that it turns them dark. And when you move back into the shade, they become light. So that transparency is something that you can offer to counterparties and people that you trust with your identity. And to everybody else, you can choose to pull down the shades and make it dark. How
Man,
yeah.
I'm sorry. I want you to finish what you're going to say, but I never would have realized that PhotoChromic had that level of kind of a hidden meaning behind it. That's really cool. I don't know that I would have noticed that without you saying it. Thanks for asking. But I think the what we want to do is we want to help people manage their own identity. How we do that ties back to the point around NFTs. So everyone's now interested in what is an NFT. And I think, it was the leap away from trying to explain something that was very intangible as, Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other token. Now there's some visual to it. So a visual identification of a token. And so we build on that by saying, let's take your biometrics. So the visual of your face, we use that to seed a generative piece of art, and we bond your biometrics of your face to an NFT. We obviously have to change that NFT so you can't transfer it to another person. Otherwise that would kind of be defeating the point. But once you've got your biometrics, it's a one-way encryption of your face onto that generative piece of art. We don't store any documentation of yours. We give you the utility that you have access to a vault, and that's where you can save, in that PhotoChromic layer, you can save documents you only want to keep for yourself. You can keep documents that you're happy to expose to trusted sources. And there's some documents, if you're an artist or a celebrity or a sportsman, that you may want to expose to the rest of the world because they care about your identity. But that is effectively call it your passport to travel around Web3 and to consume services, connect yourself with other accounts, and the utility to be able to bond your identity to assets, to contracts, and to people. So
yeah, that's really what the thinking is, and how we look to put that identity back in the hands of the everyday person.
Man, I've got so many thoughts on this and follow-up questions just to your answer on there, which let me just start out with, I've had the issue before of if I have health issues and I go to the doctor in another country and my health record is completely inaccessible from another country. Would a solution like this to keep my digital identity, on the blockchain, borderless, easy to transfer over, would something like PhotoChromic be able to solve for that, where it would show all the diagnoses, everything that a doctor has been able to do, if I chose to share that with somebody in another country?
Absolutely, and that's a great use case. So we probably wouldn't be the service to manage your health records. I mean, you could keep them in your vault, but I mean, what we are hoping is that the community of developers produces their systems that would connect with your NFT identity, and then allow those documents and insights and reports and health data, maybe even coming from your watch, etc., to be able to share that with someone that you're comfortable with. If you want to share it with that particular doctor in a new country, you absolutely can. You can reveal that transparency to them, and you can also sign that digital contract to say, I'm happy to share this with you for only this period of time. Thereafter, I'm revoking it again.
I love that. And you mentioned that a little bit about the customizability of what is seen and what is not seen. And one of the things you mentioned was like a celebrity or an influencer or somebody that's very much in the public eye may want to have some different things out there so that it can be seen. But other people that are a little more private may choose not to, or only show information to some individuals for a certain period of time while they need it. And so that type of use case certainly is valuable now. Now, tell me this. It seems like you've perfectly timed the release of PhotoChromic with kind of this need for identification. We start hearing about vaccine passports and, different type of things like that you have to prove of something on yourself to be able to get some sort of access to something. Is this something you kind of, not necessarily that you saw COVID coming, but did you see a need for a biometrically managed identification on the blockchain kind of coming? Is this something that you saw coming even before COVID?
I can't say that I can see that far into the future. And I think, to be honest, it was really a stroke of luck that, that the world of understanding and working together with influencers, seeing how much their personal brand, which is a form of their identity, matters to them. And, I think it was last week or the week before when Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram went down, and it suddenly dawned on a lot of people who then couldn't access not just their own photos, but their family and friends and communities' photos, that all of a sudden that could be swept away in a heartbeat. And that reliance on a centralized service is, you don't really think it through until things go wrong. And so I think for us, we long believed in being able to verify identity. My partner in the business has spent much of his career working in identity verification for centralized services like banks and insurers. So I don't think it's new to us, but I think we do have the lack of good timing right now, given that NFTs are being understood and appreciated by people, that people want to take control of their identity. And there's this advent of, new users wanting to put their foot down in Web3 and say, this is the time to rebuild. It's the time to rethink how everything's ever worked in technology. And there's so much work to be done. And we're excited that we could add a small brick in the wall of Web3.
No, you're definitely probably more than a small brick in the wall. Now, answer me this. Another need that I can think for identification is, now this is different everywhere around the world, but if I want to buy a beer somewhere, if I'm to go to the bar, and I live in the United States, in the United States, you have to be 21 and people will show their, government issued identification to prove that they are 21. And there's a big business around here of selling, fake IDs. And so how are you able, with this digital identification to make sure that what people have as their digital ID is valid. In other words, that they are not just fudging the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, so that all starts at the beginning of the process, and something quite exciting is this genesis of your NFT, your own NFT ID, and our first release of that is called the Photo Sapiens. So, like, we all are Homo sapiens, but we all have this big appreciation for what we can do with a camera around us. So we've called that token, or that NFT, a Photo Sapien, and the on-ramp of that requires some form of Web 2 or traditional government onboarding, when that's the process called enrollment, and you'll have to use your face and your government issued record, whether that's your passport or identity card or something similar. And in some countries, we also can connect to the government database, so we can do a validation of your face against your passport, against the government, and say, this is in fact you, and we know that this is the information about you. So, we haven't crossed the bridge around age yet, but that may be something that gets that is part of your identity, and that record is saved, and then there would be a process, and I suppose someone would have to build that integration that checking your face. So, where we're thinking of using it as a first use case is transfer of value. So at the moment someone logs into my computer and my MetaMask's open, someone can transfer a large sum of money, if I had it in my MetaMask, to someone else. There would be no check. What we're looking to do is to smooth that process so that it's not a hex address that you're going to send to. You would know the person that you're going to send to. So we're going to use the ENS service to say, I'd like to send this money to Stephen. And because it's over a certain amount, it's going to open my camera and it's going to check my face. It's going to run that same encryption of my face, and it's going to compare it to my NFT that sits in my wallet. And only if there's a match there, we'd be able to, the transaction would be validated, that it could be sent. So I think the same applies back to your example is, we could have some opt-in information that people could use their face, and at the door, a camera opens, checks their face, looks at the wallet address from their QR code and says, yeah, this person's allowed in. So it would use a zero knowledge proof, I guess, rather than saying this person is 21. It might just say this person's old enough to go in. And the same with KYC. You don't have to expose your documents and your information. You can expose the credentials that you have been KYC'd. So, there's definitely some things to think through there on our workings, but yeah, all of those are real world applications we'd like to help solve.
Interesting. And you definitely answered that well, in that it sounds like the genesis of this, the NFT that is your identity is with a government issued document to start with. So, it all kind of can come back to that way. Therefore, it's verifiable. That way, I'm not saying that I'm 21 when I'm really 16 just because I typed it into a DApp or something like that. It sounds like it has to be verified, which is good. That's you said what I wanted to. Another thing you just now said, and again, I run my AMAs a little conversationally, so sometimes you'll say something that'll make me think, is you said, in my example of, like going into a bar, that there could be like a camera on the outside of the door that literally, instead of me flashing up, even a QR code, which maybe would be how things begin in a process like this. But is there ever a time whenever it literally would just do facial recognition, use that as your biometric, and that's all you would have to do? That would be check enough to be able to do that. Is that the future that you see, where literally our biometrics are our keys to get access to things?
Imagine a case where on voting day that you didn't have to all leave your house and go and stand and manually do your voting. Imagine using the blockchain, which is absolutely immutable. Your camera opens, it verifies that it is in fact you, and you can only have one vote. So, traditional crypto doesn't cater much for the one person, one vote or type of scenario. It caters for one wallet, one vote. And what your NFT identity would allow you to do is exactly that. So the camera and the confirmation of that encryption of your face matching to a particular record could confirm that you can do certain things or you can't. I mean, for online universities, imagine how many people are, just getting their friends to log in and write the tests for them or,
Right.
earn those credentials. And now quickly before your lecture starts, it opens your camera. So it checks your attendance relative to your wallet, NFT. It checks before you write a test, is it in fact you? And then when it's going to issue your certificates or your degree to you, it's going to see you would get a lot more comfort that it does in fact belong to you.
That's great. I love where you have that. And I love your example of even a classroom, because you're right. I'm sure undoubtedly they get their smart buddy to take their online test and there's no way to be able to verify that it's them. But you're right. In the future, that camera right there on that laptop could verify that this is indeed the person that should be taking the test. I love that. So I certainly see a need for PhotoChromic and digital identification in the future, but the blockchain space, it's fairly private whenever it comes to identity. Nobody really likes to dox themselves, even myself. I'm going by the voice of DeFi, going by Steven, not my full identity. Have you ran into any issues with people being afraid of their identity being put out there on the blockchain, even though I understand that they can hide some things from public view? Maybe some people don't completely understand that. How are you keeping these type of people's fears minimized?
Such a great question. And it's absolutely a core part of our focus. And if you had to address it with words, I'd say you don't want to be identifiable, but you still want an identity. So the fact that you're pseudonymous, but you can still engage with us as a community, people still trust and respect your opinions and the guests that you bring on, is fantastic. But behind that sits your own identity, and the utility of that allows you to do things, whether they're on Web3 or in the real world. And that is something that you need, but you don't have to expose that to anybody. So we don't want to make people identifiable. We don't want to have a way that someone can track your wallet and what contracts you're in. And, that shouldn't be public. That should be how you choose to manage it. And that's where, we would choose to split between being identifiable, but for you to have the utility of your identity.
Interesting. Yeah. So I can have the utility of my identity, but not necessarily always identifiable, unless I choose to give somebody access to that. So I like that. And I think in today's age, it's just in blockchain, it's a more security conscious group. Right now, I think everybody will be blockchain savvy, but in the future, I think everybody will be blockchain savvy. But right now, it's definitely just a certain group of technophiles, and these technophiles tend to be a little more private. So I'm glad to hear that you understand that that's an issue and something that you are wanting to tackle, or something that's very top of mind for you for this, for sure. Well, one thing your website mentions is that people you trust will take on the role of validators of your identity. That really got the gears going in my brain, just trying to figure out how that works. Can you explain how that works?
Totally. So, the roadmap that we're looking to follow is to make our project and protocol as decentralized as possible. What that means is, at the beginning, there are sources of trust that we'll have to lean on. So, like we touched on just now, we're going to have to lean on our own governments and our government-issued passports and identities to enroll onto the service. And when enough people have done that and enough people have interacted with each other on the blockchain, over time, you become less reliant on those centralized services. When centralized services start allowing you to passwordly log in with your PhotoChromic NFT, over time, people will be comfortable with the fact that usernames and passwords can't be exposed. And when we talk about validation, and this is probably related to a conversation we can have around our ERC20 token, which can be spent and can be earned, the validators would run open source software to validate people's identities. So what we would like is just like any of the chains they have node operators and validators that are processing all of those transactions that go through the blockchain. And when we say that people you trust, we imagine that in time, we would like to give people the ability to support their communities by running nodes that would do validations. We would obviously have to structure the system in such a way that it would randomly select a number of those those node operators to do the validations, so that you could never have a bias towards one operator validating the guy who wants to get into the bar and slipping through the cracks that he was 21 and forcing that transaction through. That wouldn't be able to happen. But we want everyday people to in time understand what an NFT is, get a PhotoChromic NFT identity, and be part of the community that can not just enjoy the utility of it, but also can run those nodes. So from a technical roadmap, we want to make that software easy to install and deploy and operate, so that anybody can start earning the token by doing those validations.
Interesting. So and you were a perfect segue into my next question as far as incentivization. Part of your project, of course, is the identity bonding token, PHCR. It's an ERC20 token. But this token has some interesting tokenomics. Is it a utility token, which I guess you sort of just answered that it does have some utility, but what will be users, if I buy me a boatload of it, what will I be able to do with this token?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think initially it's an economic token, and in time it becomes a utility token the more distributed it is. But and I think I'll clarify this for the broader audience. There's two tokens. One is an NFT, which is, from the real words of that is an ERC721, which is a transferable, non-fungible token. And then there's the ERC20 token, or the PHCR, as you mentioned. And that's the token that you'll spend when you are enrolling, when you're creating your identity NFT. You'll spend when you bond it. So you could bond your identity to a DocuSign document. You could bond it to a fractional ownership of a cool cat, or perhaps a property. And then you would earn it if you ran this software and ran the validation. So much like Bitcoin miners are earning it for processing the transactions and validating them. And then you can spend it on how you choose to manage your identity.
Love that. And I love one thing that you said kind of is your evolution of it is maybe starting as an economic token, but its ultimate goal is a utility token. So those that, just like anything in this space, those that get in early could definitely see economic benefits if it does well, if the broader scope of people see it as a utility token. So I think that's really, really good to be able to have both of those sides of things. By the way, I just wondered this, it was PHCR. What acronym am I looking at there?
So we actually wanted photo as our token, and we found out that someone's taken that already. So PH for photo and CR for chromic.
For chromic, okay. As you were answering it, I was like, I'm an idiot. That makes complete sense.
So that was second prize for us, but yeah, that's how we happened across that.
That makes complete sense. Now, you chose to be an ERC20 token. Advantages and disadvantages to that for sure. What made you decide to make it an ERC20 token?
So I'll answer with the second part first, which is in time we'll have all of the layer 2 chains. I think that the reason why it made sense to go with Ethereum first is because People appreciate NFTs with whichever chain you're using, but there's just a higher prevalence of usage of NFTs in that space. And then there's also the ENS service, which is an interesting story for those that don't know. But a DNS, a domain name server, exists on your when you put in a URL. So if you type in google.com, it's the DNS matches the word that you've put in to an IP address and then goes to that IP address to render the page. So it takes away the friction of having to remember the IP address of Google. You can just put in google.com. When the internet was first around, you had to put in the IP address. And ENS, the Ethereum name service, does exactly the same thing. It maps a easy to remember name, like, Ethereum.eth, and that'll map it to a particular address. So in time, much like, say, Revolut is a banking service in Europe, that you can send money to a username. What sits behind that, the protocol in the bank just solves, what's the IBAN number, which country is it going to, are there special requirements, etc. That all gets sorted out. You're just sending money to a username. I guess PayPal is similar, that you're sending it to an email address. And that's really the ease with which we can get traction and utility, is making use of ENS, the NFT community that's out there. But in time, to go to Cardano, to go to Polygon and to Solana and do the same thing is absolutely part of the roadmap.
Okay. So you aren't just going to camp out in Ethereum and just make your home there. You would like to have multiple locations across different blockchains, which I think is going to absolutely be necessary. A lot of fees are so widely different, especially with Ethereum. It can be rather expensive to run a transaction. And I know people can be rather fee conscious on these things. So I can see why people may want that to be the case. But you're really forward thinking, already thinking about, how you said, you could send something and have an identification based on a username type of thing, kind of like you said, with the web address versus an IP address. That's really forward thinking of you, to me, to kind of think of if we're going to have a utility, we can't have somebody always, let's use we keep on using the bar example. I'll stick with that. Maybe I don't have my phone with me or my QR code with me, and maybe this bar doesn't have a camera outside to do biometrics for my face, and I can't remember my wallet address. But maybe if it's connected and it's at Voice of DeFi, then it can it can connect and it could know me. So to me, it does sound like you've thought of a few different scenarios of where we could be headed to. And is that kind of where you're going with this project? Is you kind of have to think, a couple steps ahead. It's more chess than checkers.
It is a little bit of that. And I think, at the same time, conversations like we're having now are really important, because there are people listening and people out there in the community who have really valuable use cases that we haven't even thought of. And exposing the real basics and the trust and authenticity of your own identity and giving you the comfort that you can manage that yourself. And then having the total blue sky to think about how you could do that in the future and what you could do with that. That's where I think the real excitement for us exists, is, as much as we would like to look into the future and play that chess game, we actually want to have our community involved as part of the roadmap. So you'll see in our tokenomics, our biggest allocation of tokens is community incentive. So projects that are out there that are thinking of interesting ways to protect individuals, to empower individuals, to make their lives easier on the web. Those are the people that we want to engage with to further our own project.
Okay, you went right where I was wanting you to go a little bit earlier, is tokenomics. So, and you picked exactly the one that I had a question about, was the community incentive. So yeah, 35%, you got 15 million total supply in your tokenomics, but 35% of that is community incentive. And I immediately saw that and thought, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big supply or a portion of the supply to be set aside for community incentive. Can you give me an idea or maybe an example or, a fake scenario that could potentially be real of what community incentive would look like?
So one of the things that I think COVID has made us realize is that we love to galvanize around a community of sport. And it has been so strange to watch sports games with no fans in the stands. Yeah. Yet they are so well attended from behind the television. The community that exists is there, but they're not able to connect with each other as they do in the way that we are used to on the stands. So one of the projects that we working with as part of our community incentive has a very interesting keyboard that connects European soccer clubs, American college football teams, and some Major League Baseball teams to their fans through a keyboard on their phone. So you can download the keyboard if you follow a particular team and you use that keyboard every day. But that keyboard also brings you news and events and experience of what's happening in that club. And what we are doing with them is to validate the identities of all those sports people as part of those clubs and help them create memorabilia that they can share with their fans. And the memorabilia is obviously distributed as NFTs, but then every game that fan has attended, they've got an NFT to keep in their wallets as a record of that memory. A particular moment in the match that was so important to the team, but also celebrated by the fans, they can mint as NFTs and the fans can own them. And we want to make sure that those come from verified sources. We don't want somebody engineering or pretending to be some fantastic college football player and then minting NFTs. We want the actual person to do that. And why that's important to the sports people is that they can engage with their community, but they can earn an income for decades. And, that their legacy can live on through those memories and also as an income stream. So that's a community incentive project where the clubs are earning tokens, the sports people are earning tokens, and the fans are supporting them by buying those tokens. So that's an example of one. You could apply the same to some celebrity type engagements. You could apply it to DeFi and finance, community DAOs. There's so much. So I'd love to appeal to your audience to ask people to come forward and to share their thoughts and ideas with us.
Well, we're just about to do that. So everybody be ready here in a moment. I am going to open it up for questions to where you can ask Murray Legg, the founder of PhotoChromic, some questions. I'm going to have him choose 5 questions, and the 5 questions that he chooses, MoonWilly will give $20 to those people that choose those 5 different questions. But before we do that, let me ask one last question, and then I'll just kind of open it up. But we talked about your roadmap a little bit, and you've really accomplished quite a bit. What do you want to accomplish in the rest of this year on your roadmap? And then I'm going to go ahead and ask about 2022. What are you looking to accomplish next year?
Super. So, one of the questions that typically comes up is, who is our team and what are we doing and how are we qualified for this? And we've got an incredible team of technology developers from around the world, identity specialists, marketing and influencers, and everybody's working to piece this together and really bring that utility out to the community as quickly as possible. So the reason why some of us haven't been revealed yet is there's some compliance because of the nature of the companies that they work for, being incredible listed public companies in some cases, and compliance just needs to kind of check some boxes before that happens. But from the development roadmap, we are working hard to get our first NFT drop out, which are the Photosapiens, which will be a limited edition Gen 1 series that people can buy. And we're going to give those people a whole lot of benefits and perks by being part of that early beta testing group. And we hope that community people and influencers would purchase those, and then we will release our biometric verification process probably around Christmas time, and that would then allow people to take the NFTs that they've bought, bond their biometrics to them, and then unlock a lot of utility. So we want to do that by the end of the year, and then into next year, we want to get onto Cardano as quickly as possible. There's obviously a little bit we have to wait for there in terms of the smart contract developments and so on. But we want to get as quickly as we can to there because there's so much interest and hype going on in that space. And then we want to work hard with communities that are using our tokens and our NFTs to get credibility from bringing projects to us that could use that. So even if it's just being able to log in passwordlessly with our NFT, that would be fantastic. People then could say, oh, wow, I didn't know that I could do this if I had this NFT. And then their mind can open to the reality that this is potentially a part of the future. So next year is all about community, and getting onto Cardano and then hopefully Polygon, by the end of next year.
Okay. Yeah. You're wanting to do quite a few things just by the end of this year for starters, but you've got, Cardano next year that you would like to do. Lots of things on the roadmap. Before we ask the questions, how should somebody keep up with the latest updates from PhotoChromic? Where should they go?
So great question. I think it's already just been answered and pinned in the chat. So go visit our website on photochromic.io, join our Telegram channel and announcements channel to stay up to date. We're soon going to announce the date of our IDO. It's something that we've been working towards. And then I think those are the two for now. We don't yet have a Discord channel. We'll get that going in the next month or so. But best is Twitter and Telegram.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and, there we go. There's a little sound effect for you. I'm going to go ahead and open up questions. There, people were ready. Open up questions to ask here of PhotoChromic so we can learn a little bit more. And here's the way I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk about MoonWilly here just for a moment, and that's going to give you a chance to look over some of these questions. If you can pick out 5 of them to answer, and before you answer them, if you will just tell me the person's name or just reply to them 1, and then you could reply to the next one 2, and the next one 3, as long as I know who's asking them so we can make sure they get their $20 of DAI. So I'll let you look over these questions and pick 5 good ones. In the meantime, while he's doing that, I will speak about where you're at. You're in the MoonWilly Telegram, and you're wondering, what is this? I follow around PhotoChromic everywhere they go.
Steven, I'm going to keep you company while Murray gets his nice questions and answers. So what are we doing here, Steven? Tell us.
What are we doing here? Thank you for asking. Well, we are here with the MoonWilly.com podcast, and we are here every day, Monday through Friday at 1800 UTC. And we talk about everything from what's going on in the crypto world to what we had for lunch today. I mean, we'll really talk about just anything, but it all comes back to blockchain, crypto, and of course the MoonWilly token. Now, the MoonWilly token is an auto rewards token that will reward you in the stablecoin DAI. So market goes up, it's worth $1. Market goes down, it's worth $1. 8% of every transaction is converted to DAI, and then it's redistributed amongst the MoonWilly holders. The more you hold, the more you get of that 8% that's redistributed. There's a long roadmap as well, including an NFT marketplace. So lots of things that are exciting, including Kevin and the man you just heard, Achi. They are the co-founders of the token. Kevin's a doxed founder. He is the entrepreneur of the Cryptopedia network. It's a webpage, but it's also a channel on YouTube. So make sure you check out the Cryptopedia network so you can learn the most you can. But this MoonWilly token is a great community And this is your chance to be a part of it by joining us every day at 1800 UTC. So you can also listen to absolute fire AMAs just like this one, where, hey, you're able to see a little glimpse of maybe what the future could hold in digital identification with PhotoChromic. So you're definitely able to see a little bit, you're able to be a little clairvoyant, if I can use such a word, by hearing some of these AMAs. All right, Mr. Legg, have you been able to look through and find a few questions that are deserving of answering?
It's quite amazing. Your community's been so good at asking questions. We've got such a range. So yeah, let's crack on and work through them. I think the first one is probably a general one. It comes from My Young Ways, and that is the question: what are your thoughts on the NFT market today, and what are your predictions for the future? I think that's a good reference question because not everybody is currently exposed to NFTs. I think, the on-ramp typically is, let's buy Bitcoin, let's buy Ethereum, let's keep it on the exchange. Then a few people kind of leak out into, let's take self-custody of my tokens and keep them in a MetaMask account or a physical cold wallet. And then what do we do with them? And NFTs are, I think, that first visual representation of what is a token and why is it valuable as one layer. And the second layer is how valuable is it effectively unlocks the present value of that community in a financial way. So if we look at something like the CryptoPunks or the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection, those collections are so in demand and so revered, and the community that exists around it, it's almost like an exclusive club. And 10,000 of them, the history of CryptoPunks is quite amazing. They gave them away for free. You didn't even have to pay the gas or the minting fee of 0.05 ETH to get a CryptoPunk. You could just go and collect one. They even paid the gas, and now it's actually changed people's lives. I mean, I read about it on Twitter how, people are quitting their jobs to go and trade NFTs, and how they have paid down their student debt and they have bought their house, paid it off, and bought cars because they have lucked out on NFTs. And as much as that's exciting, I think, like anything that's new, the abundance tends to wear off as the crowd comes. And I think consuming NFTs for your own personal financial gain may be something that we could all do now, but I think it's more around appreciation of art and having access to a community that you enjoy and trust. I personally own a cool cat, and I love going to the Discord channel and just chatting to people and learning about their experiences in life and where they're from. That means more to me than, the value of it. But I think, the NFT world is such a great gateway to building a community of people that you don't actually need to identify. Each person has an identity, but you don't have to identify them. You're all bonded by that common interest in that community NFT. So the space is pretty interesting. But I think where we're going is utility tokens, utility of NFT. So, when all of you open up your physical wallets, you've got membership cards, and you've got benefits cards, and you've got credit cards, and you've got your identity card. But in time, you're going to have a digital wallet, and all of those cards are going to be NFTs. You're going to have a record of your life from all of the events that you attended, the courses that you did, the certificates that you earned, the communities that you're part of and were part of, all in a history book that lives on chain. So I think that's where it's going. The Don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Steve.
No, I don't have anything to add to it, but I love the idea of, like you said, everything being in the digital wallet. My wallet always is just filled to the brim, not of cash, unfortunately, but of just junk. Okay. And the idea of having a digital wallet, maybe it would cure this sciatica that I'm dealing with from this wallet I'm sitting on. But I appreciate that answer for that from Mahjong Ways. Can you find you? Oh, okay.
Well, hey,
somebody just ate a mushroom.
I was looking for the right time to put that sound effect, right? But I got to call that person's name out, right? And then put the sound effect. My bad.
Be ready. We got 4 more, Kevin. So you be ready. But all right, if you can find the second, person to answer a question to, I will get their name as well.
Cool. So Alexa Ronnie says, my question is about your long-term marketing plans. How or through which big partnerships do you plan on utilizing to pass your product onto the normal, especially non-crypto people? And I love that question because it's about non-crypto people. And I think, part of our ethos is that we don't want people to have to understand what an ERC 721 is. We just want people to believe that their identity is worth something to them. And if they lose it, that's a problem. So trusting in a protocol like blockchain is a valuable place to manage your identity. So I think, that question really appeals to me because our roadmap should look to appeal to non-crypto people. So anybody should just be able to quite quickly create that NFT, put it into their wallet and carry on with their time on the web. But it should almost work seamlessly. Like we don't have to educate them about it, that they just know that there's a process that they're looked after, and they take comfort from that. We obviously have to do a lot of work to gain people's trust. We are in a trustless world and we have to assume that nobody trusts us. So every conversation and every relationship that we build comes from zero trust, and so much credibility and investment into our communication and our transparency will hopefully lead us in that direction. So love that question, and that's absolutely part of our plan.
Yeah, and it's got to be, I think, for growth to be able to, obviously kind of have a longer term plan like that. So fantastic question. I've got the name down for that question. Do you have a third lucky person here that's going to get their question answered?
I do. So Olive, O-L-I-V, asks, have you considered the value of your identity and the current status quo where that identity is managed by governments, banks, and third parties? What I love about that question is people's identity extends into so many parts of their life. I mean, the brands that, if we just look down at the clothes that we're all wearing, the brands that we choose to associate with, the brands of food in our pantries, the furniture and cars that we drive, are all extensions of our identity. The friends that we have, the values that we stand for, the belief systems that we pass on to our children. There's so much to identity. It's all got to tie back to something. And that taproot right now is the government. And, we just think that we're all living in a world where governments are important, but they're often getting things wrong. I mean, we just look, what's happening in Lebanon right now. That's, it's a total indictment on people's freedom and their identity. And if we extend, the values that tie back to a single taproot, and we say, well, what about that being your face? Because your face is something that tends to stay with you for your whole life, and you can tend to move into a new country, and you can use that as you mentioned earlier, Stephen, your keys. Those keys, together with a code that you can remember and probably a passphrase, are your ticket to do whatever you want to online.
I love that. And you're right. And I always think about that being in a different country with a healthcare scenario, like I said in the beginning. But for several different scenarios, your face is your face and it's not changing for the most part, minus major reconstructive surgery. But for the most part, your face is staying. Well, yeah, we talked about celebrities earlier. Tom Cruise doesn't look like Tom Cruise used to, but yeah, I'm sure the facial recognition would still pick it up as a celebrity, as who he is. So yeah, interesting thoughts there for sure. And yeah, I like your answer over there. All right, we have done 3 of 5 questions about PhotoChromic, and these were all really good questions so far. Can you find us a 4th person?
I can. So Crypto RAF, RAF, there's partnerships, one of the important factors of project growth. Can you tell us about the partnership from PhotoChromic? So, I mean, I mentioned the one with our sports partnership network, which is pretty exciting. Another one that is, I think, is important to us, and we touched on it, is a partnership with Jira Wallet and Fractal. Fractal being the IDV and KYC provider, and Jira Wallet being the Cardano wallet. We're working with them to obviously on the Cardano network to be able to allow people to do a KYC once a year, and then expose that KYC to a bank, an insurer, a project that they might be investing into, or some financial DeFi service that they'd like to take up, trustlessly, so that they don't have to expose the documentation. They don't have to expose their identity. They could just expose their wallet address and the fact that they've been KYC'd. So through a zero knowledge proof, it allows them to easily just onboard to any service. And I mean, like all of you guys will have experienced at some point in your life when you're battling to get KYC'd on a new exchange. You know that's difficult. And what we're looking to do in this project is to allow that to happen pretty seamlessly and take just a number of seconds. So that's a very exciting project for us, because it allows people to then start transacting with the comfort and authenticity of their identity being behind that wallet. So that's one. And I think, the second part of that question is, and I mentioned it before, is we'd love to hear from the community and, visit our website, photochromic.io, fill in the form at the bottom of the page and tell us what you're working on. Every day we're getting such interesting emails from people working on great projects and saying, we don't want to have to do the KYC ourselves. We don't want to have to worry about saving the individual's username, password, and physical address. That creates a risk for us. So if we can work with them and help solve those problems, that's a great way for them to benefit, and us, and then ultimately you guys as the community enjoying those products and services.
And I love it whenever you put extra emphasis into your community, because the community needs to be a big part of the project. And then even going to other communities that are trying to do some things that, like you said, don't want to do the KYC, that's part of it. It just makes for a great fit for partnership. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic use really for your project or for your product. All right. One more question. If you can find one more, and then we will wrap it up.
Perfect. So Moonboys, BOYES, says, what's your strongest advantage that you think will make your team lead the market? And that's a great question. And I think it's one of those things that we touched on earlier, which is firstly luck. So you hear about these overnight successes that took 20 years in the making. And I think the opportunity that exists for us now in identity, we think that we have some secret sauce, which is linked to the NFT and to the biometrics, the track record of a lot of the people in our team who've spent years working on identity, working on crypto, and are now able to kind of find a common vision and a common belief of something to put that towards and work on. So, to the point where in our private sale, all of our developers, from even our suppliers, were in such strong belief of the project that they participated in the private sale. So we have this beautiful alignment where everyone in the team is working towards this common goal of being able to help people with their identity. So your point just now, Stephen, when it comes back to the community, it's valuable. I mean, we actually even have our own community inside our team already, where everyone's waking up every day and thinking, how can I make this thing work? How can people build trust around it? And, how can we offer the best possible service to our users so that they can thrive into the future? So that's really it. But it also relies on people like you. You're a connector of conversation with a community. And thanks for taking time to spend it with me and hear about our project. And thanks to your community for taking the time to listen.
Thank you so much for being here. You've really kind of broadened our idea of what an NFT could be. And for that, we appreciate it. It's a fantastic project. Before I close us out here, and by the way, just to not shock you, we close out with song and dance. So that's going to be a little different. But before I do that, can I get you to close us out with just a wise word? There's probably someone here right now that's kind of going through the early stages of their progression. They are trying to find their purpose, trying to find out what they are passionate about. They're going through the woes of life. And to that person, what do you say to them? Close us out with a wise word.
I'd say to people that are working hard and not finding that state of flow or getting that traction that they're hoping for, or winning at that relationship that they're fully invested into, whatever it is that they're taking strain on, I'd say keep the grit. Keep the grit to keep going. Believe in yourself. Believe in your own identity. Because you're going to get there. You absolutely going to get there. And it takes some grit and it takes some dark days to get there. But that's all of the enjoyment and pleasure that you'll savor even more so on the day that you do feel that win.
Man, grit. If I sort of summarize that in one word, it's just grit. And I love that answer. Well, thank you so much for being here. There's you a little bit of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic answers, fantastic project, and everybody go check that out. Look at their white paper. It's really interesting as well. But you can check them out and do a little bit of your own research at photochromic.io. And there you'll be able to see the tokenomics, the roadmap, everything that will catch you up. But really, you probably heard quite a bit of this project today. And let your mind run wild. Think about the different things that a digital identity could possibly bring, because it very well could be a part of your future, as NFTs can do so much more than just give us pretty pictures of 8-bit art.
Thanks for listening to the official MoonWilly podcast. Don't forget to head to MoonWilly.com and learn more about this exciting token.
This podcast is not financial advice. Do not take anything said in this podcast as advice for buying or selling any crypto, stock, index, or other trading tool. You should do your own research or seek the help of a trained financial advisor. This is for entertainment only. The information contained in or provided from or through this podcast is not intended to be and does not constitute financial advice, investment advice, trading advice, or any advice.